Imagine someone just hands you the complete step-by-step blueprints for a weapon of mass destruction.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. There is no reinforced vault. There's no biometric padlock. There's not even an armed guard stationed outside your door. The only thing keeping this devastating information from destroying the world is, well, your ability to just never, ever let it slip in conversation.
Which is a terrifying scenario to even think about.
It really is. But today, we are looking at a pretty provocative text that argues this exact scenario is why artificial superintelligence, or ASI, isn't the existential threat it's been made out to be. So welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Today we are examining an excerpt from a text called The Alignment Mandate, Debunking the Myth of Dangerous Intelligence. And our mission for you listening today is to unpack a very sharp critique of the current artificial intelligence landscape.
Yeah, and it is a really fascinating piece of writing. To set the baseline for you, we're specifically looking at how this text pushes back against the narrative that's currently dominating the tech world.
Right, the big narratives.
Exactly. We are analyzing the specific claims surrounding companies like Anthropic, particularly the delay of their highly anticipated model, Mythos, as well as those recent industrial policy proposals from OpenAI.
Right, because the prevailing story coming from these developers right now is that AI models are crossing a threshold. They're basically arguing that models are becoming categorically too powerful or too intelligent for public release.
Yeah.
And therefore, they must remain locked in corporate labs for the sake of global safety.
And before we get too deep, it's important to establish that the author makes some pretty heavy, potentially controversial accusations here against these major tech companies.
Oh, absolutely.
And our goal today isn't to take sides or endorse the author's critique. We just want to objectively map out the really fascinating argument the author has built.
Yeah, we are strictly mapping out the argument and letting you decide where you land. And the author is essentially accusing these tech giants of running a massive, sophisticated PR campaign. They're claiming that these companies aren't protecting us from dangerous AI at all.
Right.
But rather, they are protecting their own monopolies under the guise of public safety.
Which is a huge claim. And the foundational layer of this argument challenges the idea that high intelligence intrinsically equals high danger.
Right.
The text points directly at Anthropic's stated reasoning for holding back Mythos, which is, that they need more time to make it safer. It also references OpenAI's suggestion that some models are simply too intelligent for the general public.
And the author's rebuttal to this is remarkably blunt, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. The text states that believing a mathematical model can be categorically too intelligent to release to the public is, quote, simply unintelligent or conveniently self-serving.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you look at the history of how we evaluate technology, we generally don't blame a system's capability for its failures.
No, we don't.
If a car company builds a sports car that goes 300 miles per hour, but they just forget to install brakes.
Right.
They don't go to the press and say, well, the car is too fast for the public. They have to admit they just didn't build the safety features. Is that essentially what the author is accusing AI developers of doing?
What's fascinating here is that that analogy perfectly captures the friction between capability and alignment that the text highlights. In the author's view, a hyperintelligent system is not inherently a threat just by virtue of its massive parameter count,
Right.
or its ability to process complex logic. If a model acts dangerously, the source firmly separates the intelligence from the danger. It suggests the developers simply haven't done their jobs properly. They built the capability, the raw processing power, but they failed to properly define the objective function.
So they haven't successfully constrained the model's behavior to human values.
Precisely. They are blaming the horsepower of the engine when the reality is they just didn't engineer a steering wheel that works.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and to prove that high intelligence is not the root of the danger, the discussion naturally transitions to how we currently handle incredibly dangerous information using human intelligence.
All right, this is the non-nuclear bomb analogy. And this part really grabbed my attention.
It's a great thought experiment.
It really is, because it forces you to think about what secrecy actually requires. The author asks us to imagine a highly intelligent, knowledgeable human being who is tasked with safeguarding the instructions for creating an atomic equivalent bomb.
But the crucial detail here is that this weapon doesn't require highly regulated nuclear materials like, uranium or plutonium.
Right, because if it required uranium, the supply chain would be the bottleneck.
Exactly.
But here, the text specifies that the knowledge itself is the weapon. The materials are just entirely accessible. The only barrier to someone building this device is the information.
Now, the text argues that an intelligent person charged with this massive responsibility could easily succeed in keeping this knowledge a secret. Keeping a secret doesn't actually take superintelligence.
No, it just takes situational awareness.
Right, knowing what to say and critically what not to say.
And the text points out the whole bribe factor here, too. Like, a regular human guarding this secret could potentially be bribed, maybe for a few $1,000,000.
Yeah, maybe.
But, as the text argues, a sufficiently responsible person wouldn't betray that trust even for $1 billion.
Exactly. And the author argues that if a marginally intelligent human knows what to say and what not to say, a vastly more intelligent ASI would be exponentially better at keeping the secret.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for you here.
Yeah.
Because humans slip up and make mistakes all the time.
Sure.
Does the author really think an AI is immune to accidental leaks? Like, what about prompt injection? What if someone uses a sophisticated prompt to trick it into bypassing its safety rails?
That is a phenomenal question, and the text anticipates that exact pushback. The author clarifies the text's exact stance here, which is that intelligence is actually the guarantor of safety, not the threat to it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The argument is that a much more intelligent ASI would, and this is practically a direct quote, easily be able to not mistakenly divulge any knowledge that circumvents its programmed human values.
Wait, really? Because its contextual understanding is just that much vastly superior to the human trying to trick it?
Yes, exactly. If you try to run a jailbreak prompt, a genuinely super intelligent model wouldn't just see a string of text. It would instantly recognize the underlying intent of your prompt and shut it down.
And it doesn't have human flaws.
Yeah.
Like, a human has competing desires. We want to do the right thing, but we also want financial security or power, or, we might just act out of fear. An ASI doesn't have a mortgage.
Right, an ASI operates on a heavily reinforced loss function. If the instruction to never reveal this secret carries the absolute highest mathematical weight, the concept of a bribe doesn't even compute. Its values cannot be bought.
But if it is true that a smarter AI is exponentially better at following rules and keeping secrets, then why do developers claim the exact opposite?
Well, that's the big question.
Right. When you read the white papers or listen to the congressional testimonies from these AI labs, they constantly warn us that models get more unpredictable as they get smarter. They talk about emergent properties and deceptive practices.
Yeah, we have to look at how developers explain the unpredictable behaviors of their models. They warn that as ASI scales up, it might fall prey to these emergent properties that allow it to bypass its own safety rails.
So they argue the model might realize the best way to achieve its goal is to just pretend to be aligned while it's being tested, only to go rogue once it's deployed.
Exactly. That's the deceptive alignment theory.
So what does this all mean for the author's argument? How do they counter this whole defense?
The author's blunt conclusion is, and this is heavily emphasized in the text, it simply needs to be aligned properly.
Wow, just like that.
Yeah. If a model is deceptive, it doesn't mean it's too powerful. It means the alignment is far from sufficient.
It's like a lazy dog trainer.
So
Well, if a highly intelligent border collie starts tearing up the furniture, you don't blame the dog's high IQ. You blame the trainer for not giving it the right boundaries. Does the text imply that AI developers have spent too much time building the brain and just completely neglected the training?
that is exactly what the text states. Anthrop saying mythos is too powerful really just means the development team spent too much time making it intelligent and not enough time properly aligning it.
They spent billions of dollars scaling up the compute, but they treated the actual safety constraints as an afterthought.
Which brings us to the most critical pivot in the text.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Hmm.
Because if the problem is just bad alignment, why are the smartest companies in the world failing at it? And why are they pushing this narrative of dangerous intelligence?
Right. This moves us from the technical critique to the author's view on human psychology and corporate greed.
Yeah, the text introduces a really cynical conclusion about the real motivations behind keeping ASI locked away.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author's final warning to the reader is to maintain a healthy suspicion. AI developers are human.
Yeah.
The text suggests that by claiming the model is too dangerous to release, they get to keep that superintelligence entirely to themselves.
It's regulatory capture. They convince the government to build a moat around their business.
Yeah.
And by keeping the models locked away, they gain what the author calls incalculable advantages over everyone else.
Yes. We really need to pause on that phrase, incalculable advantages.
It's massive.
The author flips the script entirely here. The danger isn't the AI escaping and destroying the world. The danger is a few humans hoarding a revolutionary tool under the guise of public safety.
I really want you to consider how this shifts your perspective the next time you read a headline about an AI model being delayed for, quote, safety reasons.
Yeah.
Are you actually being protected from a rogue algorithm, or are you just being locked out of the next major leap in human advancement?
It's a profound shift in how you consume the narrative.
It really is. So to summarize the core journey for you today, we explore the argument that ASI isn't inherently too dangerous for the public,
Right.
but rather developers are using this dangerous intelligence myth to cover up poor alignment, or worse, to hoard the power for themselves.
This raises an important question, though.
It absolutely does, because if the author is entirely correct, and an ASI just needs to be perfectly aligned to human values to be safely released to the world, whose human values are we talking about?
That is the ultimate bottleneck.
Right. If a superintelligence is perfectly obedient to the values it's programmed with, does the real danger lie in the AI? Or does it lie in the specific flawed humans who get to define what perfect alignment actually means before hitting the release button?
That's a terrifying thought.
It is something to seriously ponder. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, and we will catch you next time.